Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. Stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Welcome, PR Maven Nation, to this week's episode, one of our mini episodes, a quick and informative look at the history of public relations. The podcast is presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the 65-step Marshall Plan process. For more information, visit marshallpr.com. And on the website under PR Maven, you will also find information about my two books, PR Works and Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand. This week, I will be sharing our blog post by Abby Violet, an overview, the history of public relations. Abby was my intern from Thomas College, and she did a fabulous job putting this together. So let's dive right in. Public relations is a relatively new concept compared to other professions such as law or medicine. The idea of PR stems from the concept of communication, which dates all the way back to the philosophers of ancient Greece. Most of us know about Socrates and Plato, and we've used Aristotle's art of rhetoric, ethos, logos, and pathos in our writing. But many people don't know that ancient Greece is in fact the foundation of PR. The idea of using communication to persuade is one of its first practical uses of public relations. The idea of spreading communication or persuasion to the masses comes from the early 15th century and Pope Gregory XII, who coined the term propaganda as we know it today. The term was repurposed from a Latin word used to describe a commission of cardinals tasked with spreading Catholicism to non-Catholic countries. Fast forward to the birth of America, where mass communication was used in full swing to gain independence from the British Empire. Founding Father Samuel Adams spread political messages to oppose the British monarchy, inspiring the famous anti-tax protests now known as the Boston Tea Party in 1773. 3 years later, Thomas Paine published Common Sense, a pamphlet meant to persuade the masses to support the American Revolution from Great Britain. And just months later, the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. Then came 1829, with Amos Kendall, a forefather of modern-day journalism, emerging as an influential member of President Andrew Jackson's cabinet. Kendall drafted much of President Jackson's political messaging to transform his public image from a Southern-born war hero into an intellectual worthy of being president. Today, we call this intentional shaping and reshaping of a person's public image personal branding. And it's one of the favorite things that I do every day. Many PR agencies offer personal branding services, just like how Marshall Communications does through the PR Maven. As the decades passed, PR continued to develop. In the late 19th century, Phineas Taylor, otherwise known as P.T. Barnum, a publicity showman, created the Barnum and Bailey Greatest Show on Earth circus. To promote the circus with publicity stunts, Barnum used a circus elephant to plow his front yard, attracting newspaper editors to inquire about advertising. He also approached reporters with news about actors in his show, laying the foundation for press agents to publicize their clients. Fun fact, Elvis's manager was previously part of the circus. When the Barnum and Bailey Circus came to town, a parade would be held on the morning of the event, spreading the word and enticing local residents to attend. Eventually attracting millions of attendees, it was one of the most effective uses of PR in history. And I always like to say, part of it was because it was so visual. And when you're trying to attract, especially broadcast media, you need to make sure that you have something that's visual. By the 20th century, Ivy Ledbetter Lee had changed PR forever. One of the industry's founding fathers, Lee was hired by John D. Rockefeller in 1903 to advise the family. In his Declaration of Principles, he stated that the public should receive accurate, timely information on a company's actions, specifically in light of Rockefeller's unpopular reaction to strikes in his coal mines. Lee suggested that Rockefeller visit the mines and interact with the miners, and he successfully boosted his public image by doing it. In 1906, Lee also wrote what is thought to be the first press release ever, responding to a major railway crash in Atlantic City. The press release was written on behalf of Pennsylvania Railroad to ensure that the company's reputation would not take a hit, and it was published by the New York Times, word for word. Not long after, Edward L. Bernays presented the two-way street concept between a company and the public in his book, Crystallizing Public Opinion. Before Bernays, many believed that PR deceived the public, but he emphasized the importance of accountability and transparency, tearing down much of the wall between companies and everyday Americans. Bernays also believed in using behavioral psychological theories developed by his uncle, Sigmund Freud, shaping his PR methods with a keen understanding of human behavior. Another fun fact, in 2011, I was honored to be the recipient of the Maine Public Relations Council's Edward L. Bernays Award, the highest honor bestowed on a single practitioner in my home state of Maine. By the end of the 1920s, some of the world's largest companies, including GM and AT&T, began relying on internal PR counselors. But it wasn't until the height of the Great Depression that the first PR department was created, namely by the National Association of Manufacturers, also known as NAM. With its new department, NAM launched a 13-year campaign that included movie shorts and leaflets, influencing public opinion about the U.S. manufacturing sector. Soon after World War II hit, the United States created the Office of War Information, which acted as a central means for the government to communicate to the public about the war effort. And after the war ended, PR inevitably blossomed into an industry with agencies from coast to coast and around the world. As time has passed, the industry of PR has evolved, adapting to rapid technological change and the emergence of the internet. Today, PR agencies continue to innovate and expand, responding to relatively new trends like social media. Social media platforms now present new marketing concepts such as content creation, and PR agencies have become experts on content creation as a result, leveraging a wide range of content for the sake of branding, just like my own personal brand, the PR Maven, and content marketing like this podcast, the PR Maven Podcast. As PR expert Brian Huff puts it, public relation has moved into an era of independent news creation, and social media has created a culture of endorsement-driven influence by way of utilizing people with large followings to promote products, brands, and ideas instead of the generic marketing tactics of the late 20th century. And that's only the latest evolution of PR. Judging by history, more change will come. And the most successful agencies will use that change to their advantage, serving their clients better than ever before. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to get a free PR Maven Things to Do pad by leaving a review and subscribing to the PR Maven podcast on your favorite podcast player. Then visit prmaven.com/giveaway and submit your information so we can send you a to-do pad in the mail. Now here's my friend Mike Duguay to share how my two books, PR Works and Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand, have helped him.
After reading PR Works, I really started to think about how marketing actually works. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but what I realize is that each platform nowadays that we use out there in digital media and social media has its own nuance and also quirks to it. And understanding how they're used is exceedingly important. Because when you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail. And you can't approach it that way in marketing. And that's where I think Nancy's brilliance really shined in PR works. I think grow your audience, grow your brand is really sort of the manifesto of understanding that there's many different levels to marketing. It's on your personal side of your brand, how actually you express yourself through business, but also what people hear you saying and what they see out there in the public eye as well. So I think what's really important there, that's really the blueprint of how you go about using these new social media platforms, but also to express who you are as a human being. Because people want to see you authentically and genuinely working with not only what you do, but also with the customers. And Nancy, on a personal level, I think that's who she is. She embodies that approach.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven podcast. I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the Skills and Games section to find and enable the PR Maven Podcast Flash Briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.